my heart, I always wanted to live on the land and farm. Although I grew up in Glasgow, I had an aunt who had a farm, a small dairy farm. And for me, that was just paradise. I absolutely loved it. I came to Rosebud when I married Peter. Peter's family are all of Danish origin, and Valhalla is Danish for heaven. It's a heaven for warriors. And when we came to Valhalla, we didn't realize that we were going to have to end up becoming warriors.
The picturesque Rosebud River Valley, 1 hour from Calgary, Alberta. Fiona and Peter Lauridsen settled here in 1991 and raised a family. It's a hard life, but they managed, until Alberta's oil and gas boom came to the valley and Fiona began to notice strange things happening to her water.
It was fall of 2005. I'd turn on the tap for a drink of water, and it was just white in the glass when you poured it, thick with bubbles, and there would be like smoke coming off it, and the water would kind of Alka-Seltzer fizz, and it never used to do that.
In 2003, a new form of gas exploration was used for the first time near the Valhalla farm. Underground explosions were set off to tap into deposits of coal bed methane, or CBM. Gas wells sprung up everywhere, and the Lauridsens' problems began.
When everyone came out of the shower, we all had these bright red marks. Your skin kind of scalded. You put your nails through your scalp and you'd come out with big lumps of kind of dead skin under your fingernails and kind of scabby buildups. It was really kind of disgusting. That told me that there's something frightening in this water.
With her family's health at risk, Fiona needed to know if nearby CBM drilling contaminated her well. She asked the province's environmental watchdog, Alberta Environment, to investigate. But Alberta Environment wasn't convinced and told Fiona to call the gas company itself if she wanted to pursue the matter. That company was EnCana, Canada's largest oil and gas producer with over 50,000 gas wells across North America. And to house its new head office, they've broken ground on the tallest tower Western Canada has ever seen. In March of 2006, EnCana finally released its report on Valhalla's water problems, absolving itself of all blame.
In Alberta, the company that's accused of causing the contamination gets to conduct the investigation. We didn't do it, and here's why, here's our proof, and there's no cross-examination. That's it, done.
We'll go say hello to Bo and this other one down here.
The EnCana report was not good news to Peter. In the best of years, Peter struggles to break even raising cattle. He depends on grain farming to pay the bills. With each cow consuming 15 gallons of water a day, Peter wonders how he'll survive.
I don't know what'll become of the cattle business. It's kind of grim right now. But they're so much more fun than grain.
Like most prairie farmers during a hot, dry summer, Peter prays for rain. But when the rains finally arrive, they bring more than Peter bargained for.
Hey, the barbecue, Dad! We gotta save the barbecue!
I mean, we were just completely underwater in the prairie. And they're saying in this valley, oh, all the problems are caused by drought. And we have this mighty flood where there's this abundance of water like no other time. And it was quite the experience, that flood.
With bills piled high and harvest still months away, the rent EnCana pays to operate gas wells on Valhalla Farm is sometimes the only way to put food on the table. Peter welcomes the stable source of income, but Fiona is conflicted about receiving payments from the company.
And basically, as a landowner in Alberta, you don't have the right to refuse a well. They have the mineral rights, and you don't have the right to stop them.
The Valhalla Farm runs to the edge of Rosebud, where EnCana has donated nearly $300,000 to the local theatre, the town's main industry and employer. Fiona works there one day a week, bringing guests to their seats and introducing the shows. More than 40,000 tourists stream into Rosebud each year, and the town has plans to grow bigger still, but expansion will cost millions. The theater's executive director, Bob Davis, knows it's a tall order for a small town.
We've gone to EnCana and they've offered support and it's been great. We build Rosebud Centre in the next couple of years, and then on the heels of that build a new theater within, say, 5 years. Well, within a 10-year window, there could be a real burgeoning, a real growth.
I don't think the theater would be in the condition it is if we weren't there doing that funding.
From his office in downtown Calgary, EnCana's Alan Boris keeps close tabs on what's happening in the valley.
We're not new to Rosebud. We recognize that not everybody's going to like what we do, but the vast majority are content. They care about building a strong community and raising their children and paying their mortgages and having a reasonable lifestyle. Does everyone have exact harmonious relations with all their neighbors all the time? I don't think it's human nature.
Alberta's gas boom has spread new wealth into the valley. Longtime resident George Comstock isn't eager to go back to the way things were.
The words good old days is a fallacy, you know, it's not really true. You get used to luxuries and you don't want to go back to the old ways. All the old timers had gas in their water. It was just a way of life. And they put up with it. It's only the people that moved into the area recently that consider it to be a problem.
They know that people are going to say, well, there was always gas here because there was. Tina's where they went into the supply aquifer for this.
Well aware that methane has always been present in the valley's water supply, EnCana has argued that Fiona's case is nothing new. Fiona disagrees and shows George Comstock why.
It sprays out really a lot at first, so you might get soaked if you're that close. Whoa! See how white it is?
Yeah.
I mean, this is gas that's creating this pressure. This water is a slow flow well. You know, there's not a lot of flow.
Mm-hmm.
See the big bubbles coming out by the hose now?
Yeah.
Those are fairly substantial gas bubbles. That's them popping here.
Well, I know that in the past there's been methane in the water. We can't argue about that. We have to assume that it's worse now than it was.
I'm just not willing to believe EnCana anymore.
In 2004 and 5, over a dozen gas wells were drilled on or around Valhalla Farms. Fiona believes her groundwater was contaminated by fracking, the process used by EnCana to extract underground deposits of coal bed methane. In a frack, a hole is drilled into the ground. Explosions are detonated and fluids are pumped in to fracture the coal seam. The fracturing process may have caused methane to find its way into the water table and eventually out through Fiona's kitchen tap.
It's tied to 2. Yeah.
Fiona is upset that EnCana can exonerate itself of blame, and she pressures Alberta Environment to investigate further. But the oil and gas boom fills provincial coffers with $12 billion a year in revenue. Fiona doesn't know what Alberta Environment will do.
Nice job.
Fiona finally receives a response from Alberta Environment's head office in Edmonton, Alberta. Alberta Environment agrees to investigate the situation at Valhalla. As part of its good neighbor policy, EnCana has been delivering safe water to the farm. EnCana's water will meet the family's needs, but it isn't nearly enough to feed the cattle. It's one more hardship Peter has had to overcome.
Well, let's go make a positive ID. She slipped and fell, got on her side, couldn't get up. Coyotes have been into her.
For Peter, cattle are far more than a livelihood. The loss of a cow to accident is something he has to live with.
Shit. Anyway, I think we can say our prayers and go.
By the fall of 2007, the Lauridsens have been coping with bad well water for almost 2 years. Alberta Environment has still not decided if nearby gas drilling is to blame. But Peter has more immediate concerns. There's only enough safe drinking water for his family. His livestock have been drinking from the river, but with winter approaching and the first freeze not far away, Peter and Fiona have no idea what they'll do.
That's
First time I was actually out there doing experiments with Dad and Mom. Told my dad to cap the hole, and he did. So we tried again, we shook it up, and he put the lighter in there, and he leaned pretty down close, and it just blew up right in his face, so he was pretty shocked, and so was I.
For the Lauridsens' youngest child, Matthew, burning water is more than a source of amusement.
We couldn't drink the sink water, and we were getting weird skin irritation, like burns and rashes on our skins from the shower. Oh my God. I thought it was pretty fun until I realized the actual danger of it.
But the Lauridsens' problem is not unique. At the bed and breakfast across the fence from Valhalla Farm, owner Debbie Signer has troubles of her own. Alberta Environment found the carcinogens benzene and ethylbenzene in her well water, but cannot explain how they got there.
I don't have hope that they're going to do much more for me. It's emotionally trying. You feel like you're pounding your head against the wall and getting nowhere.
Fiona shares Debbie's frustration. Trace amounts of toluene linked to neurological damage were found in Valhalla's water. Fiona and Debbie want to know which chemicals EnCana used when drilling nearby, but the chemical composition of the fluid used in the fracking process is proprietary, a trade secret. Deciding she cannot win this fight, Debbie gives up and leaves the valley for good. But Fiona is not willing to lose the farm. With no news from Alberta Environment, the Lauridsens have moved their cows to land 7 miles away from Valhalla. In a year beset by problems, this is one more obstacle they will have to overcome.
Now we have to drive up to this other location every day, and at calving season, it's hard to do that because you have to maybe check 3-4 times a night depending on what's going on.
The added burden of caring for the cattle falls largely on Peter. Fiona tries to deal with the family's water problem in a different way.
What I'd rather do is try and get discussion going with the government, with EnCana, to say, look, these things are causing problems for me. You need to address these issues. Don't push me away with bullshit.
However strenuous, dealing with EnCana and Alberta Environment is only half the battle for Fiona.
I'd say Peter's been the hardest person to convince. He has really struggled with accepting it. We just don't talk about it.
Fiona would like Peter to help her take on the gas company. Instead, Peter spends his spare time in town volunteering to build an expansion to the Rosebud Museum. Peter's reluctance to get involved is a source of growing tension in their relationship.
You know, Peter is involved in all kinds of community things. He's very conscious of it. He didn't want this to have any kind of negative impact on his community. He worried a lot that our neighbours would be angry with us. He wasn't sure how he was going to justify it. He doesn't want to be a person who causes trouble because he's not.
It just goes to show that our building relationship with EnCana, for us, can go a long way. And we were fortunate to win the award in innovation.
Bob Davis meets with the theatre's board of directors. Around the table is a who's who of Rosebud and Alberta, including Lyle Oberg, a former finance minister,
And there weren't too many.
and Morris Ertman, the theatre's artistic director.
We'd love to get away from all this water well stuff that goes on in this town.
But you can light your water.
We can light it. It's a tourist attraction.
Spirits are running high as the board looks towards its biggest season ever.
Everybody's heard about Rosebud. It's a big story coming out of a little place.
And to kick off the new season, Morris has chosen a production destined to take the theatre to a whole new level.
Fiddler on the Roof is the biggest production we've ever tackled. Fiddler has that kind of a human connection to all kinds of people, regardless of where they are. And I think that's one of the reasons why the ticket sales are going through the roof.
Shauna Murphy is the piano player at the theatre and manages its front of house. Shauna shows off the brand new blueprints for the expansion to the dining hall.
They're going to put on this huge, so it's going to more than double. But I mean, if it's 2.4 million, I mean, that's an awful lot of money for an enterprise this size to come up with. Has EnCana said we'll give you money, or has the government said we'll give you money?
Part of that is some EnCana money, I think. It's just a way of the arts. We need patronage.
Fiona had been supplementing her farm income by working 1 day a week at the theatre. But she was no longer comfortable introducing the show's sponsor and began to feel her presence at the theatre was causing tension. So she quit.
And the thing is, for people in the towns where they'll, put a roof on the arena or the library or donate to this or that, EnCana are great. They're lovely. They've never done anything to them. They've done plenty to me as far as I'm concerned.
In Canada and the US, fracking is increasingly used to extract gas, and complaints about water contamination are multiplying. Outside Rifle, Colorado, Lisa Bracken is a landowner surrounded by EnCana gas wells. In 2004, a well was fractured near her home and she experienced problems all too familiar to Fiona.
There was gas coming up to such a degree that we could put a foot-high cone on it and light a match, and it shot another 1.5 feet in the air. There was benzene and all kinds of nasty stuff coming down the creek itself.
After much prodding by Lisa Bracken, the state of Colorado eventually found EnCana guilty of causing the seep.
And so EnCana was fined $371,000. They were found responsible for it during a hearing. But we wonder, it's been 5 years and there's still benzene coming up in significant amounts.
When landowners don't know what to test for, proof is harder to come by. Geologist Jeffrey Tyne understands the difficulties facing farmers.
Too many of the companies have simply said, it's not our fault. You can't prove we're responsible. We demand that you show us absolute proof. But we will not give you the information that might help you get that absolute proof.
Fiona has been doing her own research on fracking. She's hopeful that Alberta Environment will blame her contaminated water on nearby gas drilling.
Got quite a bit of stuff, documents.
Fiona learns the problem extends far beyond the Rosebud Valley. A cattle farm outside Edmonton is surrounded by coal bed methane wells operated by one of EnCana's competitors, Quicksilver Resources. Since his water well went bad in 2005, Dale Zimmerman has had to truck in all his water. It's taken its toll.
How many hours does it take you to haul this water home for these cows every day?
6 to 7 hours a day.
Hauling water for your cows? That doesn't leave you a lot of time to get anything else done, does it?
Can't get into trouble.
And how many cows have you got?
Well, I had roughly 100 cows plus calves. Anything that I've trucked water to isn't dying, but anything that initially had the water is still a question mark.
I mean, there's always the occasional death, but when you're getting clumps of deaths, then you know that something's wrong somewhere and you got to find out what it is.
They just bleed to death. There is something not uneven.
Dale Zimmerman's water well provided for all his needs until fracking came to the region.
And now we get 7 or 8 types of gas, 4 types of hydrocarbons, and the quality of water is 0.
And did that happen gradually over time? Or?
That happened within 24 hours of one well that was drilled here, one coal bed methane well. We'll be out of the house by the weekend.
This weekend?
But it's a medical move.
So you're getting sick?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Nobody knows that.
That's pretty scary. Wow.
After seeing Dale's farm, Fiona worries that she may have to leave Valhalla. It's been 2 years since Fiona first filed her complaint about Valhalla's well water. Alberta Environment has delegated its investigation to an independent body of scientists and industry people known as the Alberta Research Council, or ARC. The Lauridsens hope that the ARC's report will conclude that EnCana's gas drilling did damage their water well.
When Rutherford speaks, Alberta listens. The issues of the day from a uniquely Western perspective. This is Rutherford on CHQR.
It was a concern about the possibility that coal bed methane development had somehow affected well water. Alberta Research Council found that the methane in these wells was naturally occurring and not the result of coal bed methane exploration. Well, right away, as some environmentalists...
When the news finally comes, it couldn't be worse.
They said, oh, no, you can't trust that.
EnCana have been exonerated, and Alberta Research Council have said, well, we don't think energy developments could have had any impact on Lauridson's water. So what did happen to the water? How did those hydrocarbons get there? How did toluene show up in my well? Out in the middle of the Rosebud Valley. That's a man-made chemical. How did it get there? That hasn't been answered.
But Fiona believes that it can be explained. That when EnCana drilled in the Rosebud Valley in 2004, it fractured into the water table, or aquifer, which supplies Valhalla and neighboring farms. Surprisingly, Fiona's view is partially validated by Alec Blythe, author of the ARC report.
Based on the data that I've seen, it does appear that they fractured in it. I don't think that impacted, caused any gas migration. So if this whole Rosebud area has been contaminated by either CBM or conventional gas, my question is, show me the ethane.
The presence of ethane could indicate that EnCana's fracturing contaminated Fiona's water. She wonders if Alberta Environment and the Alberta Research Council left no stone unturned in their investigation. The ARC counts EnCana among its many clients in the industry.
I had asked Alberta Environment to do this, and Alberta Environment told me that they don't have a flow-through cell. So Joe Public can just rent one for $40, but Alberta Environment can't get one.
At the University of Alberta, geochemist Carlos Muhlenbachs tests the ethane in Fiona's sample.
We should be seeing ethane. It's a tiny, tiny little peak. Yeah, it counted it.
Oh, yeah.
The ethane actually tells you more about the source of the gas. And I don't think it's a near surface. I don't think it's a near surface ethane. It's a deeper ethane. Some of the water wells in Rosebud are contaminated. I cannot tell you where the gas came from, but it can't be like well maintenance. The stuff grew there because the well isn't maintained.
But the government of Alberta says otherwise. It accepts the Alberta Research Council report, and in April 2008, the Minister of the Environment stands before the House to place the blame squarely on farmers.
At the same time, Mr. Speaker, Albertans have a responsibility to ensure that they maintain in an appropriate way their domestic wells. And there are cases with respect to whether or not that maintenance of those domestic wells has been done appropriately.
The honourable member. Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The government and Alberta Environment have tried to portray me in a very bad light. I'm honest to God devastated by it inside, emotionally. I just think it's tragic.
Fiona has reached the end of her rope. Stonewalled by the government, she calls into Alberta's most popular radio show to plead her case.
Fiona, hello.
I wanted to ask why the Alberta Research Council did not challenge Alberta Environment's excuses for excluding critical existing...
Fiona, you gotta listen to the answers, Fiona. Come on. I know you're angry, Fiona. I know you don't buy it, you don't agree with it, but you gotta listen. It's over. Next.
Alberta Environment endorses the ARC's findings and closes the case. EnCana delivers water to Valhalla for the last time.
We bought this property with an intact and adequate water supply. I think that, well, it has been taken from us.
EnCana first came here, it was kind of a godsend for us. The money came in really handy when they wanted to drill a well or put in a pipeline. I was quite happy about it. And then finding about all the things that go wrong or can go wrong, it's been difficult for sure.
With Peter finally on board, Fiona travels to British Columbia, where the specter of CBM drilling has galvanized a community.
The thing that I do know is that any company that comes here and tries to tell you that there's no problems between CBM and water in Alberta is misinforming you. If you let it in your door, they just keep coming.
The residents of Princeton can't get enough of Fiona. But back in Alberta, when she confronts her local MLA at a public meeting, she receives a much cooler reception.
Are you aware that regulations in Alberta permit companies to produce gas in drinking water aquifers?
I'm not aware of that. In fact, I'm not so sure that that is the case. The information that I've
As an Albertan, I have no idea what can be put in my water 201 meters away from my source. I think it's outrageous, I think it's scandalous, and I appeal for your support in taking this concern to the government.
I haven't done detailed research on this, but I'm happy to talk to you some more, at a future time with regard to this, sure.
Thank you.
Despite Fiona's concerns, the local MLA does not follow up with the Lauridsens.
It is no crime to be poor.
In this world, it's the rich.
Back in Rosebud, Fiddler on the Roof is in dress rehearsals, and water contamination is the furthest thing from people's minds.
I don't think that people in town are scared. I don't think, for the most part, that they have to spend a lot of time thinking about it. They're involved in what they do. Oil and gas is not an issue on their mind. The leases aren't on their land or their property.
It's great to put up a sign and say, we want you to drive slow and not run over the neighborhood kids. But, you have to extend that courtesy a little further to what you're doing.
This is Valhalla Farms property.
Maybe it makes a difference if we squawk or do this or that. Probably it doesn't. But if we make an effort, it's a little easier to look at yourself after it's all said and done.
In Colorado, geologist Jeffrey Tyne has studied the effects of hydraulic fracking and has found that it can cause gas to migrate into water wells. He thinks fracking for gas has not yet been proven to be safe.
I cannot find a study that convinces me that hydraulic fracking has been tested rigorously to be safe or not safe. It's an enormous environmental resource in the Western U.S. It's an enormous environmental resource in Canada. It's an enormous environmental resource in the northeast of the U.S. I can't imagine anybody who lives there wants to have stuff coming into their drinking water.
Back at Valhalla, Fiona is concerned about the increase in fracking that is occurring in Alberta.
Yes, I'm worried about it. And I'm trying to say to people, we have a concern in Alberta that could seriously affect our future, and we're not dealing with it.
With her well water contaminated and deliveries of safe water cut off, Fiona has had to haul water to Valhalla Farms herself. It's backbreaking work, 4 times a week, but cannot be avoided. Levels of methane exceed safe standards, and the neurotoxin toluene was detected in the water. Chris Gerritsen has offered to help. Chris's family has been digging water wells in the valley for generations.
I'm convinced that they were using chemicals in there. The safety of me and my family, I haven't used the water in my well. Straight out of the tap, I haven't drank it for the last 5 years.
I've seen bags of chemicals on their sites. Naphthalene doesn't occur naturally in groundwater, neither does benzene. That was found at the time of the complaint. There is no way that toluene occurs naturally.
What we're talking about is natural substances. So nitrogen, 78% of the atmosphere of the air we're breathing right now. Methane, naturally occurring CH4 and water, H2O.
EnCana has emphasized that it does not currently use toxic chemicals in the fracking process. But what about when EnCana first started drilling in the Rosebud Valley?
As to what has been used in the exploration stage with every well, you know, I don't know all those specifics. There's been hundreds of wells.
They know what happened.
Yeah, we know what happened, but
I suspect what happened. They know what happened.
you know, everybody messes up, but they wouldn't admit it. That's the problem, is they wouldn't admit it.
When EnCana came to me, they said to me, "What do you want?" And I said, "Well, I want a public apology for what you did to my water well."
Yeah.
And they said right there and then, "We can't do that."
You'll never hear an apology from anyone over this. You don't ever expect it either, because it's an admission of guilt.
Fears about chemicals in his well water have prompted Peter to move his cattle to pasture land 7 miles from Valhalla. It makes a long workday longer still, but the quality of the water here makes it worth Peter's effort.
We're blessed with glorious amounts of water on this farm. We really are. Good water. There's probably 4 or 5 places along here, if we look hard enough, where you can find where it's basically just spilling out of the hill. Nice and clear. Ice cold, very refreshing.
But EnCana wants to frack more gas wells on this new pasture land, and Peter is powerless to stop it. Farmers control the top layer of their land only as deep as they can plow. The right to exploit what's underneath can be granted without their consent.
They surveyed some well sites they wanted to do here. One of them was just over here to the north. That's extremely close to our springs that are coming out. We're not too happy about that, given what happened at the other place, so we don't need any more unfortunate occurrences.
Despite their water problems, the Lauridsens don't want to sue EnCana or the government.
The way to make it right is not by paying us a bunch of money. It's by doing what they can to resolve our water issue.
Peter, nice to see you. Thanks for coming in. This is awesome.
Pleasure.
Obviously a big deal for all of us.
Big deal, yeah.
Come on in, Peter.
Peter and Fiona have traveled to Calgary to ask David Swan, leader of Alberta's opposition Liberal Party, to help them get a meeting with Rob Renner, the province's environment minister. Swan may be the Lauridsens' last chance to get their case reopened and save Valhalla Farm.
This has to stop, and I think you folks are heading up the movement that's going to force the government to be stricter.
So let's just go in and see what's happening this morning in Rosebud.
Back in town, everything is coming up roses. The theater is basking in unprecedented attention and has received full funding for the expansion of its dining hall.
We've been fortunate to receive some significant support. It was an impossible dream, but turned out to be possible after all.
If I were a rich man,
Fiddler on the Roof opened to rave reviews and sold-out audiences. But at Valhalla Farm, the Lauridsens are in dire financial straits. Fiona returns to her job at the theater, but will no longer introduce the show or its sponsor.
I have an order here, and it states that you must sell your homes and be out of here in 3 days.
Fiddler on the Roof tells the story of a poor farmer driven from his land and homestead. Fiona and Peter hope that the Alberta Minister of Environment can spare them a similar fate.
I don't know what's going to happen. It worries me a lot. I mean, we dreamed to be here. This was, you know, to be our home. And you just realize how easily that can just all be taken. Do I really want to live in a CBM field? No, I don't. I really don't.
Well, I woke up this morning, I hit the Rosebud Blues. Yeah, I woke up this morning, hit the Rosebud Blues. And I'm floating down this river, I do believe I'll be in Rosebud soon.
In February of 2009, Peter and Fiona get their long-awaited meeting with the Minister of Environment, Rob Renner. The fate of Valhalla Farm hangs in the balance. After 45 minutes, Renner has heard enough. He refuses to reopen the case.
It's hard not to feel abandoned, actually, in all of it. It's, I actually feel like crying about it, so I will. It's just that, you know, we've really fought. And people have tried to help. But at the end of the day, they don't want to own it. The people who are my friends don't want to own it. The people who've brought me water don't want to own it, and the government don't want to own it. And so it's like, shit, all this work. And now I'm still stuck with, all right, what do I do?
Now that we've gone through this experience, I just, you know, find it, you know, it's like a third world, banana republic type of thing. The way Alberta Environment dealt with us, the way our concerns were dismissed outright beforehand. Kafkaesque comes to mind.
Emotionally, the reason I want to go is because of just all the heartbreak and strife and struggle.
You know, I wanted to live in this beautiful, beautiful Alberta landscape.
Now, I can't go out in my land and think, oh, this is lovely. I go out in my land and I just think, what a shame. If you don't have water, you can't have life.
I dreamt was a real man, made of flesh, blood, and bone. The banks of a river, this place I call home. I had a family and a life, made from sweat, love, and soil. The water's all poisoned now, this place I call home. Well, you can't be free from all the greenbacks and greed when a rubber stamp motions it forward. No, I can't leave. You see, I love every piece of this land that they're taking away.